my relatives, my friends throughout the reservation. My colonial name is Emmitt Eastman, Sr. My Dakota name is Tawaka Chadiota, translated His Many Lightnings. That's my Dakota name, and I go by both, but I treasure that name mostly. I was born in 1931 from a family of 9, and I was the second oldest. And my Dakota family name was Hepana, second oldest boy in the family. And I was born on a reservation, and I lived 19 years of my life on a reservation, and then I joined the service in 1951, the Air Force. And so I got away from the reservation. Well, first of all, I went to college at Huron College, and then from there I went into the Air Force. I didn't want to be drafted by the Army, and so I'd end up in during the Korean War and end up a soldier. So I enlisted in the Air Force in 1950, December of 1950. In 1951, I was selected to join the Air Force in April of 1951. And I served there in 4 years in the U.S. Air Force. So I had many travels during my Air Force years, my military. And so I have experience in that order also. But the start from the reservation was a different time of my life and different kind of experience during the dirty 30s. And so I remember those years. I was young. I was only in my mid-teens, and so I experienced the Dust Bowl, and over the radio. We just had radio in those days. There was no TV or no electricity really, so we lived by the lamp and the pot-bellied stoves, and we lived out in the country. And my dad was a farmer, so we had horses and cattle and sheep, and we raised the animals like that. So we had to get up in the morning and make sure they were fed and watered. And my dad being a farmer, it was during the threshing years when we threshed grain, and we had to shock it before. And the threshers, we used the threshers for the farming. And anyway, just growing up in that time, it's an experience of a lifetime, something that's not like today. We lived in the hard times during even in the winter time. We had blizzards, and the blizzards were long and cold. But these experiences that we lived through during the 30s, it's unique in this sense that we had to endure all the hardships during that time. And I think it helped me make me a stronger person and a more, I learned so much and I experienced so much in that time. And I come here today and come. I'll turn that off. So I'll continue with my life story. And it is a life story in this sense that being a marathon runner, I traveled all over the world. I've traveled in 21 countries, and it wasn't a race, it was a run throughout the country. So that was a unique experience because I met people from all these countries. So the food that I ate were native to their country. And so I had to get used to different kind of foods. And so it kind of opened up my mind more so that I honored the way they cooked their meals and stuff, and the variety of food that I ate. And I know my dad and mother taught me this, and it was a valuable lesson that I learned from them, that whenever you go to somebody else's place to eat, you never make fun of the food, and you never be judgmental in it. And that was a valuable lesson, because when I went to other countries, some of the foods maybe didn't look presentable and edible, but I ate it anyway, and I learned to enjoy it and to experience more taste. After the service, when I came back and I got married in 1955, and from that union I had 7 children, and I had 5 daughters and 2 sons, and they're all alive yet now. And my wife has passed on in 1974 during childbirth, and so we lost a child, and we named him Charles Alexander, after my great uncle, Charles Alexander Eastman. And we buried them together, my wife and my son. And it was really, an experience that kind of a devastating experience, that I had to go through some hardships. And I developed alcoholism during that time for about 14 months. And it kind of weighed heavily on my children, but I kept my job. I went to rehab, and that helped me. I went to rehab, and I went through biofeedback. And it is a valuable lesson in taking care of my health, my physical, my mental, my emotional health. And it stayed with me. And to this day, I use that system, biofeedback, that system to deal with my alcoholism and my addictions that way. But I found out that you can be addicted in more ways than just alcohol and drugs, and that you could be addicted in so many ways, and it could be harmful or it could be helpful. So I learned from that dual system, that the good, bad, right, wrong, female, male. I learned from that dual system to go on with my life and try to deal with my health, my mental, physical health, emotional health. And I belong to a run called Sacred Run International, and Dennis Banks was the coordinator. And he invited me, being a marathon runner, he invited me to run with him. So that's where I got the experience to run in different countries throughout the world. Dennis Banks opened the door up for me, for my life, that not just running, but living my life in a good, positive way, a healthy, positive way. So I come here today with this experience that I learned out in the past, that there's a future, the past and the future. You learn from the past and you learn from your mistakes, your positive and negative, and you learn to be more positive. That look back at your past, but from the past, that the mistakes you had during that time, that you can improve your life, your physical, spiritual, emotional life, and you can become your own doctor, your own healer, your own lawyer. I learned from just traveling in different countries and living my everyday, day-to-day life, that I got good experience, positive experience from that. And I try to accentuate the positive and not the negative. I learned throughout my life and traveling in different countries and living in America and meeting the colonials, that and I try to live the Dakota life as close as I can. But I have a disappointment in that too. My dad and mother didn't teach me the language, and I still suffer from that. And so people who speak the language should, that's sacred. The language is sacred. It belongs to culture. We belong to culture. Culture is a good teacher. It's a good way of life. If you follow that way, you follow it in a positive way. I mean, there's bad things that can come in. It's just that you have to understand what's good for you and what's bad for you. And you can prosper for what's good for you. So I was interviewed by the Courier, Miss Heineke, and so I kind of go to school with that, just like here. It's a big classroom, life-wise, and I'm 86 years old right now, and I'm still learning. I'm still a student. When I graduate, it'll be to the next world. I'm living in this world nowadays, today, and I know tomorrow there's going to be another life. But I'm trying to learn from this life that I live in now, to prepare myself for the next life, the hereafter. There's a lot I learned from my life, hardships and positiveness, and gaining prosperity from that, to prosper myself and better myself. And that even though at my age, 86, I still want to run. I want to run like I used to. I was on a program from running, and it was an everyday program. I'd get up in the morning early, and I'd either run indoors or outdoors, depending on the weather. And so I learned from running in cold weather and hot weather and humid weather, snow, rain, slippery roads, black ice. I mean, these are conditions that it's every day, summer, winter, fall, spring. There's different conditions that you run in. And you learn how to survive in a positive way. And so these experiences I have, I talked to you about here today. I learned about these conditions of going through different countries, running in different mountains. I've run through the American Rockies and the Canadian Rockies and different other countries throughout the world where there's mountains. The Ozark Mountains in Arkansas. I mean, my running has taken me to these parts of the world where there's deserts, there's mountains, there's outbacks like in Australia, running in narrow roads in Poland, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, and into Russia. It gave me an experience that's valuable to me, that I experienced and shared with people throughout the world. Sharing these conditions and the words, the way of life that other people in other countries live. I learned that part of the world, not just America. America I was used to, and I lived during that time. But during my time of travel, it took me to different countries, different conditions, mountains, deserts. I've run in deserts, and I've run in extreme heat, extreme cold. I've run in 80 below wind chill on a Bigfoot ride in 1990. That was an experience I'll never forget, running with 300 horses in a cold. So, looking back on my life then and looking ahead, that there's more to be learned yet, that this isn't the end. This is kind of the beginning yet. It's part of the beginning. And I'll continue with my life to try to live it as positive as I can. Because you run into so much negativity, verbal-wise and politically-wise. But I belong to a culture, Dakota culture, and I admire this culture, and I try to live it in the best way I can. So running becomes part of my life, that I don't speak my language, but I carry it with my feet, my heartbeat, the heartbeat of the universe. I learned about the circle, what the circle means to me. Running long distance, ultra marathon. The starting point when you start your run. The circle, the horizon is a circle, 13 miles. And when I start my run, I'm always running with a prayer. Each step is a prayer. Whatever direction I run in, to the east. That's why directions mean a lot too. East, south, west, north, sky, earth. The seventh direction is an important direction in my life, my body, my soul. And that's a direction too that I try to follow towards, with. I live within my body and within my mind and soul. But with that, I carry my body this way forward. And I look to the east. The sun comes up. The spirits come in from that direction. I learned from my grandfather, Charles Alexander Eastman, my great uncle. Soul of the Indian. It's like my Bible of life. I try to follow that. 7 principles: knowledge, respect, wisdom, courage and bravery, humility, honesty, and lastly, love. And I've been kind of talked to by other people that, how come I don't put love first? And so I retort back and say, I try to use love and use it last, because if we follow these other directions, these other principles, that love will follow in its natural order. And a lot of people didn't see it that way, and they always put love first. And that's the putting the cart before the horse. And I try to live a life as natural as possible, as healthy as possible. I mean, life is happiness, health, humility, honesty, all that we try to follow and carry on in our soul, in our mind, in our body. So body and soul, that dual system, you can never escape. Female, male, good, bad, right and wrong. These are valuable to understand and to live, try to live by. But sometimes life gets hard, and you run into obstacles that can be a detriment to you and a stopping point. But if you follow the right principles and the right directions, and you stay on that red road, that it can keep you on the right road and the survival in a healthy, happy way. So I'm really sensitive to my voice. When I hear my voice back, I don't like my voice. I don't know why. That's the way it is. And sometimes I don't like my looks, my physical looks. But you have to deal with that. Again, that's part of living. You have to try to understand what the Creator has given to you and what you have to deal with. I try to not to use the Creator as just He. That's why to me, life is a mystery. The Creator is a mystery. The Maker is a mystery. That's what I learned from The Soul of the Indian by my great uncle Charles Eastman. Indian Boyhood, he wrote. Backwoods to Civilization. He lived he was taken to Canada in sanctuary during the 1862 uprising. He was only 4 years old. And I think his Uncle James took him up there. And so when his dad was incarcerated at Davenport, Iowa, and when he got out, I think he was in there 8 years. And when he got out, he adopted Christianity, and he took the name Eastman. His real name is His Many Lightnings, which I'm named after his name. And When he got out of prison, he went back up into Canada and brought his Charles back. And he gave him instruction that to be educated. He didn't want him to go through the same thing that he did. And I know being educated in a colonial way, there's advantages and disadvantages too. We didn't have schools when our people, our ancestors grew up. Their schooling was taught by their grandfathers, grandmothers, fathers, mothers, uncles, aunts. We learned by the natural law. I still really believe in natural law. I try to follow that as closely as I can. Education is it's in a good way, but it also takes you away from your culture, and it colonializes you, and you lose your culture that way. But if we hang on to our culture, we have something. We have an identity that we're not colony. We belong to a different kind of system. We are born into that. And now we have to adopt this. Excuse me. So I'm at a point here in my life that even though it's a later on in life at 86 years old, there's still a lot to learn, to accomplish in my life. So I come before you today learning from my past and still looking forward to the future. There's more to be learned. There's more physical steps to be taken. I want to run yet. I'm training for the Boston Marathon next year. I've run it twice. I run it when I was 40 in 1972. And I run it in 2008 when I was 76 years old. So in between that, I've always been in condition. So my body and my mind, I feel, is conditioned to withstand whatever ailments, high blood pressure, possible stroke, cancer, whatever that you encounter, your body encounters. I try to avoid that, and I use running as a doctor to that. I check my blood pressure, my running pulse rate, my weight, and my cholesterol, and my glucose, my sugar. And I have to say, at this age, I know it has helped me. Positive proof that it helped me. That I can still doctor myself even at this age yet. I can still be my own doctor, my own healer. And to you out there, some of the elders, like I am, to be elderly, there's a process, an aging process that you have to deal with all the time. and all of those ailments that go along with that. Your joints aren't as strong and healthy as it usually is. So the aging process, it affects your mind, your everyday mind, your body, your movement. So I try to move quick and fast, and try not to slow down. But these conditions that go along with it too naturally slows you down. But I try to keep up with the times and try to not to age as fast as I did. I know you got to age, and I know death is going to come into your life at some time. You're going to change worlds. And that's why I view death as just changing to another world. And this world I live in right now, it's part of preparing yourself for the next step. So some of the countries I've run in, different conditions, I have experience from all that. And I experience meeting people from different countries. And they tell me, you're in the right direction, that you're trying to do something positive. And I try to use that, what other people say. And when people come to you and talk to you about your life and what it contains, what you're trying to do with your life, trying to accomplish this and that, and just people when they come up to you, and that in itself is just, it's helpful, very helpful. So I know I have a lot of to talk about, because my life has consisted of many things more than just running. Bringing up a family. I try to leave behind in my family that I brought up. I know I'm not the perfect father, and that I've made mistakes like that, but I try to do the best I can, and I'm still healthy, and I'm still pretty much happy, and I want to continue this for the remainder of my life. Yeah, so anyway, I thank you for inviting me here to speak to you, because to me, when people just give you that time, it has strong meaning, and it has a good lesson in my life, and to continue it that way. So there's so much. I've been in different countries. Australia, I think back about Australia and the outback. I've run in the outback. And I've been in Ayers Rock, the Uluru, and different places in Australia. But Japan, the people in Japan, I've run in like an all 24-hour marathon out of Mount Fujiyama, a sacred mountain in Japan. And I've run with like good runners from Japan and throughout the world. I met Billy Mills. I met Jim Thorpe before he died. When I was in the Air Force, I was stationed in Las Vegas, and he had an All-American club that he ran. I stopped in there to see him. And so I got to meet him when he was still alive. And he died, I think it was a couple of years later. Anyway, just that experience with Jim Thorpe, his medals, 1984. We had the Jim Thorpe run. We ran to retain his medals and get his medals back for him, and which we eventually did. And his family, who lives in out east, they invited me to speak for him in Pennsylvania, Carlisle, and so that was an honor for his family just to give me the opportunity to speak for him and for the family. So these are experiences in my life, that meeting Billy Mills. Billy Mills is my close friend. He knows the runs that I run are sacred runs, not to win a race. The biggest race to be won, I think, is your life, your health, your happiness. And so that's the way I look at it. Not being a winner, to win an award that way. Just living life and living in the best way you know how, and the most helpful way you know how. I think that's probably the biggest race of all. And I think that I'm winning at that now, just being in the condition and position I'm in right now. And I feel that's very, very honoring and helpful, and gaining attention through running and dancing. I also dance too. Each dance step I consider like a running step, a prayer. You exhibit your energies and your movement. I think body movement is very valuable, because you express yourself to other people what music means, what the drum means. The drum is the heartbeat of the universe. So running becomes part of that also, and dancing is part of that. And that's a learning experience too, that's really helpful and commendable. I try not to abuse these ways, because abuse comes in many ways too also. Yeah, I look at my dance outfit there in front of there, and that's the way I want to be looked at. Dancing, running. I speak to you here in person, but I look at some of my pictures. I've got running pictures. I've been in Auschwitz. I've been at where Prince Harry got married. I danced for the Queen on her 60th anniversary of when she was on the throne, and I got to be there at the Global Village and at that. You know, a lot of things I forget. I forget things that are real valuable, but sometimes you miss out on that. That's the way life is in the aging process. I just have to deal with what I have here. And I look at some of my running pictures where I've run in different countries and stuff. And I maintained 163 my poundage, my weight. That stayed at 163 pounds because I kept my running up all the time. Now I'm about 175, which is not bad. But I want to get running weight, and I want to get down to back my regular running weight again. And I want to run, I know I wouldn't be able to run a 7-minute mile like I used to, a 6-minute mile like I used to. But as long as I jog and run at maybe a 10-mile, 9-mile, 8-mile-an-hour pace, that's fast enough for me. So anyway, to be honored, to be recognized, recognition. Recognition is a reward of life, to be recognized in a good way. I don't want to be like Donald Trump and recognize yourself and what you call yourself all the time. I mean, you have to maintain an image of what you've done in the past, but not in a political way, in a cultural way. That's why cultural is, it's not like politics. It's not like being political and colonial in that way. Legality, legal. What creates legality? Things become legal. Even money becomes legal, legal tender. I mean, there's so much to life that I can talk about without being political. I'm not political. I'm apolitical. I try to be cultural. I try to stay away from politics. Politics came over from England. We followed natural law. And to me, that has more value than all the legal terms and all the legality. So here I'm trying to separate that, and so you can distinguish what you could follow in your lifetime. So I can talk a long time about different issues and different experiences. But time is just of the essence. And time is not, time can be positive. But time can be negative too, just depending on how you use it. You always got to go back to that dual system, the positive and negative of whatever you're dealing with and whatever you announce. I'm just lucky. I'm a lucky person. I'm a lucky individual, a lucky man. I think sometimes you can provide your own luck by following the right directions. That's what I'm finding out, that I try to avoid being too much on myself, but I have to deal with my everyday life, and I have to explain it that way without being judgmental towards other people, towards myself. So coming here before you is a special honor. Being interviewed. My dad used to say, my son is going to go all around the world. And I didn't believe that. And that he's going to be well known for that. And I didn't believe it, but now I can see what he's saying. He was prophesizing without me knowing it, without me understanding. But now I see it, that I can become like a teacher, example. I want to be a good example to my children, grandchildren, to the elders, to the young throughout the reservation. I want to set a good example for them, to take care of their bodies, take care of their minds, take care of their everyday life, the morals that you have, that you try to follow, the best morals. I think if you do this, you can live a good, happy, healthy life, spiritual life. Yeah, I think back, and some of these places I run across Canada, Japan, Australia, into Russia, 13 countries in Europe. And I can't forget that I've been in South Africa. I was invited to go there by Arvo Looking Horse. And I was adopted by, we stayed at a place called, in South Africa, and the East Indians lived there. And they adopted me like a grandfather and a runner. And they invited me to train for Botswana. It's a big race in southern Africa. But I never did take them up on that. There's things that I've been offered, but I either forget about it or it doesn't mean that much to me, and so I don't accept it, But I think that the things that I did accept have been really helpful to me in my life's direction. When I was interviewed by the courier, this lady asked me to be interviewed. I didn't ask her, and I like to leave it up to some other people, not to myself, because I lived my life on a reservation. There was hard times, but there was good times too. And the good times outviewed the bad times. So anyway, I found happiness for that in this way. And to me, happiness means a lot. to me in my coming years. I just hope to continue this way of life as sacred as I can. All life is sacred. Water is life. So I view that, and some of the things that I got involved in my runs, being to different parts of the world, Hiroshima, Nagasaki, they're important to me because they went through those hard times too. And I understand the 38 too that are people that were hanged, that I never forget them. To me, they mean so much in my life, that they suffered. And I want to make up for that suffering. And I pray for them. I pray not just in my mind, but with my body, with my feet. Movement. To me, that's prayer. That's the biggest prayer of all. Because when you pray with your voice becomes like language. And I like the language, the physical language, the feet, the body, what goes along with that. To me, that's really a meaningful prayer to carry. And I hope to do this for the oncoming years. So I guess I'm near an end to my my dissertation here, my representation here to you, that I hope I carried this message that I give to you, that you can use some of it that's helpful to you. Because that's all I'm here for. To try to be helpful to my family and my friends, my people. Yeah. So I'll end that here, my dissertation here, and I thank you for letting me come before you and to listen to my presentation. This is a good day, and I live for tomorrow. So I leave you with that. Thank you.